we can start.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm audible enough now. I'll just try to be more loud. And greetings to one and all once again. I am Janvi, as you all must have seen, and I warm-heartedly welcome you to the third session of the Green Job Expo series, which is happening across 4 Saturdays. So before I begin introducing our exemplary speaker panel and what we'll be doing today, here are some guidelines for you to just note down. The first one, very important, please keep a bottle of water with you. It's going to be a 2-hour session, starting with short addresses by our speakers who will be sharing about their journeys, followed by an interesting panel discussion as well. And then we have the whole how to ace your interviews bit of it towards the end. Secondly, please share your questions in the Q&A section. I just want to repeat this point very again, that you have to share your questions only in the Q&A section, because then it's easier for us to keep a track of all the questions, and it'll be easier for us to get them answered as well. So please remember that, and we'll surely try to answer as many questions as we can. And extremely important, the last point, the feedback form will be shared towards the end of the program. Like I keep mentioning, please do fill it up and so that you all can get your participation certificate after filling the feedback form. So just to again give you an overview, our Green Job series of 4 Saturdays have been organized to familiarize young people like you with various aspects, opportunities, direction to work in careers related to sustainability and environment, and also to clear your doubts and create a better understanding around green jobs, of course. So like Abrar mentioned, I'm not going to go in details, but what I want to point out is that many of you through the feedback forms or during the sessions had asked us about these topics like roles in wildlife resources, to learn more about nature conservation, what are green jobs and green economy, and how can we avail them. So these set of questions were answered in our first session that happened on 14th August, which was all about learning, about green jobs in the non-profit sector, NGOs, governments, and we also had a session on resume building skills. So as I'm talking, I think Kavya, if you can just paste the link to the YouTube link to the session for week 1 in the chat box, so you all can always save the link and keep and go back to the session again and watch it if you haven't attended it. There's also a resource pack which we post every session. We create that resource pack, and that is shared to the registered participants via email, and it's also present in the description of the YouTube videos of that particular day. So remember, YouTube video, you have to go through it if you want to, and there's also a resource pack that comes with it. So please do go through that as well. So this was about week 1, 14th August. On 21st August, we had our second session. Again, many of you asked about e-waste disposals and what should I do if I belong to a technical background like engineering and stuff like that, learning about green businesses. So we had this nice session on all about for-profit sector in terms of green jobs and courses and careers in these kind of organizations and sustainability in corporates. So this was again a very interesting session that you can access. Again, the YouTube link will be posted in our chat box for the session for 21st August it was. And again, resource pack, the same thing applies for this as well. Please do go through the resource pack. It'll be very helpful for all of you who are interested in this field. And week 3, I'll come to week 3. So before week 3, I just want to give you a little overview of week 4. That'll be next Saturday. A lot of you again asked us about idea, how to if you have an idea about setting up a green business, how do you go about it? How do you go about the funding? So all this will be covered next week, where we'll be meeting dynamic eco-entrepreneurs who will share their journeys with us. And there's again a lot to learn from them as well. And lastly, like I mentioned before, a lot of teachers have reached out to us saying if we could please allow them to share these resources with their students. And we've just wanted to point out that we'll be most happy if you can do that. If you can share these resource packs and videos with your students, it'll be highly appreciated from our end. So cool. This was like a quick recap of our 4 Saturday session series. We will, without wasting much time, I will just give you an overview of today's session, which is week 3. So today's session is all about introducing you all to professionals working towards environmental advocacy and also learning interview skills for your dream job. So since I have been talking from the longest time and all, I don't want you all to get bored of me. I want you to just answer a quick poll question, and we just want to gauge what do you think about environmental advocacy. So if Kavya, if we could have the poll question now, great. So the question is, what do you all think environmental advocacy is? And by the time I'm reading the options, please feel free to answer quickly. The first one is holding the government accountable for environmental issues. Second option, that is B, is raising your voice and arguing in support of a specific cause related to the environment. C is finding criticism in the existing environmental policies. And fourth, that is D, is putting up social media content exposing polluting industries. So you all can see the question. Please make sure that you answer the poll. No, Shailesh, if you could just click on there is like a pop-up that must have appeared on your screen. So you just have to click on the option that Chetana and Shailesh, please click on the option. There are these circles there. So you can just click on one of the circles. We have a lot of answers coming in the chat box. So I just want to tell you, Bindu, Deepak, all of you, if you can just click on the pop-up, if there's a circle in front of option A, supposing you're selecting that, just click on that circle. So we know who has answered what. I think we'll wait for a minute. No, sorry, 30 seconds.
We already have over 120 responses.
Oh, great. So
Yeah,
good percentage of people. Let's just wait for like 15 more seconds. And then Abrar, you can just display it on the screen. Oh, also, by the time you all answer the poll, just enjoy the meme. It's not something that we created, but it's really fun to see. And I think through this session, these are all the myths that we have about environmental advocacy. And the intent to put out this meme was just that these are the myths. And now we hope to get these answered through our panelists, while they share their journeys with us, what their actual work is like, we'll get to know through the course of this session. So it'll be like a nice myth buster, which is why we put the memes. So just enjoy it. Oh yeah, we have the results here. So, okay, there are a lot of mixed responses, but yes, we have a clear winner, which is option B, raising your voice and arguing in support of a specific cause. Then the next one is 17, which is holding the government accountable. Then we have 10% wala D option, which is putting up social media content exposing polluting industries. And finally, the last one is finding criticism in existing environmental policies. Great. So, thank you for participating in this poll, firstly, really appreciate it. Now, those who selected A, C, and D are also correct because these do form a part of environmental advocacy as a whole. But option B, like you all have rightly pointed out, aptly summarizes what advocacy means. Again, to just point it out, environmental advocacy is the act of persuading or arguing in support of a specific cause, policy, idea, or a set of values. Now, just a second. Yeah. So now advocacy, as you might be aware, is a very powerful tool for a wide range of social change organizations and professionals, as we are fortunate and we are very fortunate today to have some of them joining us who practice various modes of environmental advocacy that you will learn about. We have, there is legislation to influence laws and regulations. There is critical rhetoric where you research and you analyze certain behavior, ideologies, and policies. And there is direct action in the form of movements, public education, community organization, and so on. So I really think it's going to be a very fun and an exciting session, a lot of perspectives to hear, a lot of stories to share. So please do stick with us till the end of the session to make the most of it, is what I would say. And before moving on to our first speaker, I just want to make a small announcement, which is very, very important. Please do take a note of it in your phone or in your notepad or whatever, that we are having a Climate Collectives Jobs Fair, which is taking place next Saturday, which is 4th of September. Now, the link to register is available on the screen and it will also be put in the chat box. I'd just like to say and stress on this that it's a great opportunity for you to meet climate startups, understand their job requirements, and even interview with a few of them. And maybe, you never know, you'll get placed in one of their companies. And the fact that today we're having a session on how to ace interviews, I feel like everything will fall in place. So don't miss out on this opportunity. And please do make a note of the link that will be put in the chat box. So yes, I think we're good to go with the first speaker. Any guesses who the first speaker will be? I think, okay, I'm not going to waste time. I'm just going to get right into it. With utmost pleasure, I want to introduce our first speaker for today, which is Mr. Zaman Ali. Mr. Zaman is a lawyer who is passionate, very passionate about environment. He litigates at the Bombay High Court and the Western Bench of the National Green Tribunal in Pune. Now, he's particularly passionate about environmental justice initiative. He has obtained several positive orders in his fight for this cause. For instance, very interestingly, I think he might just talk about it as well. In the Ullas River pollution case, he successfully argued for the imposition of penalties for the reverse cleanup, which received a disbursement of 100 crore rupees. So that's a huge accomplishment. And he has a lot of other accomplishments also under his belt. So without further ado, I'll invite him to speak more about his journey. So over to you, Zaman. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Janvi and Kavya, for having me. And it's a great pleasure to be on this forum, especially more so when we are losing time when it comes to climate change, when you're, especially more so when it's affecting vulnerable communities, affecting indigenous communities all across the country. And how we are going to face climate change in India is going to be very different from what's going to happen in the other parts of the country. So the impact of climate change will be substantially different and will be very, very relatable to the kind of local conditions that exist. And when we live in a tropical country, the impact will be certainly different. And I'm sure the scientists, the climate scientists involved will shed more light here. But coming to the kind of small, you know, aspects that I did, and as also I feel environmental advocacy requires lawyers at some level, because ultimately you have to bring a decision into action, and that action sometimes have to be taken up on a route which involves litigation. So I personally have been involved in a lot of environmental litigation. I actually graduated from my law school in 2014. And at the time of graduation, I did not keep environment as such in my mind. But what I had in my heart and in my mind all this while was, the reason you do law is not just because you need to have a private law practice doing commercial matters, but always at in the hindsight, one always as a lawyer needs to think of doing something in the public nature, so something which comes in the realm of public law. And since I had a lot of attachment to travel, I researched a bit, and I realized I could do something with the environmental space, and maybe try and enter the stream and see how. And one other relation, though I'm not from the science background, I'm from a commerce background, but I clearly remember I loved geography a lot back in school. And after having done in my plus one, plus two in my junior college, having done commerce, I still continue to read up on geography. So I found that connection between law, travel, and geography through this field called environment law. So in 2014 is when I actually joined an NGO, an organization by the name of Vanashakti, and they are doing some fantastic work in Mumbai and Maharashtra. So I joined them for at least a year and a half to understand, because I already have a background of having read law for 5 years. Now that I wanted to know the practicalities involved, I thought later on in life one will have to practice law. So might as well join an NGO or an organization from where I could get a sense of how really environment affects physical spaces. So for that to understand, one needs to be on the ground. So with that perspective, I joined an NGO, I worked with them. I got intense knowledge in terms of how scientific changes in a coastal city like Mumbai, as well as in hilly areas which are around the city, and so many diverse climatic conditions all across the state of Maharashtra as well as other states. I got a first-hand exposure of Western Ghats, coastal areas, beaches, wetlands, and just the general nature of how sensitive so many ecological areas are, including, for example, an RA forest that we have in Mumbai city, as well as we have a national park within Mumbai city. It's called the Sanjay Gandhi National Park. So to have been able to have that much of exposure, I certainly would say such experience definitely helped to have worked with an NGO earlier in life. Thereafter, I joined Human Rights Law Network for about 3.5 years. I worked with in the field of environmental law. But what I also learned in that particular organization was environment law is very, very closely connected to human rights law, because your livelihood of so many communities, be it tribal communities, be it indigenous communities, or other sorts of fishing communities, they're all integrally linked to how the environment is. So environment and livelihood go hand in hand. That is one thing which I feel is something which many people miss out on. People only end up looking at the ecological concerns from a perspective of what the ecological concerns are, but not from the perspective of how it also affects life on a day-to-day basis, livelihood of such people, of a lot of people rather, especially for a country like ours. So I can touch upon certain points of interest even in this sphere. And thereafter, since last 4.5 years, I have been practicing independently. And as far as the kind of work I have done, I can, like I just said earlier, I could divide it into three phases. One is regarding ecological concerns. One is regarding challenging environmental policies in constitutional courts. And third is about protecting the livelihood of indigenous communities based out of arguments of environment and science. So when it comes to ecological concerns, like Janvi pointed out, I've been involved in matters concerning river pollution, be it Ulas River, be it Methi River pollution. I've also been involved in protecting the last remaining forest of Mumbai city, which is RA forest, and for protection of the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, protection of Western Ghats, protection of all sorts of wetlands, lakes, ponds, and coastal areas across the state. So this has been kind of my work on ecological concerns. And when it comes to challenging policies, we have also been involved in challenging notifications that have been issued by Ministry of Environment, where completely your environmental legislations are being diluted. So all such dilutions which favor the industries, which are absolutely which completely take away basic principles of precautionary principle or polluter pays principle. All such policies have been challenged by us at the Bombay High Court and at the Supreme Court as well. And when it comes to indigenous communities, we have been, involved in matters for protecting the livelihood of fishing communities of different fishing settlements all across Mumbai. And this because Mumbai has a background of a lot of fishing settlements, and with all the projects that are coming in on the coast, the direct impact that it has on the habitats of fish, which generally are being used by the fishermen uh, to fish around, is something that is directly relatable to the projects being sanctioned without doing any study on the fishing resources, fishery resources that are involved. So this is the kind of work that I've been doing, and I feel litigation, or as a lawyer, the impact that you can make in the society is huge. And as a lawyer, you need to have that heart as well to go and approach the court to help people. It's not just about approaching the court and filing a case in the court and arguing it, but it is also about providing access to information of many people, many communities in the country. We have such beautiful communities in the tribal regions all across the country where they do not have an idea of what the laws are that protect them. They have no idea about, no clue about constitution, about what their constitutional rights are. So to be able to assist them by giving them proper information is something which is also a job of a lawyer. And so much more that one needs to also encourage them to participate in decision making, because generally when we see decision making processes happening, only would you find that governments, be it the state or at the central level, would upload draft laws, draft policies on their websites. And if that is the only mechanism to upload, then you're literally missing out on at least 60 to 70% of the population, because they may not have access to internet, may not have computers and laptops, or may not be even able to read English. And all these policies sometimes are uploaded in English. I'm a strong proponent of regional languages. And this is the reason why just recently you must have all read the news about Delhi High Court and Karnataka High Court passing orders to the Ministry of Environment to ensure that there are at least 15 to 16 translations of different regional languages of the English document that is being proposed, English policy that is being proposed. So this is the reason why I feel we are only looking in a myopic manner today, and only looking at cities of people who can only speak English. So that is one thing which is goes to the core of the issue involved. And as an advocate, these are the issues one needs to prop out, one needs to bring them in the public notice and help encourage people. And obviously the entire scheme of challenging the policies in court, it's a wonderful experience. You are a part of a journey as an environmental lawyer trying to bring changes at a society level. And this is something I feel lawyers can play a big role. Obviously this cannot just be that, okay, lawyers or some environmental scientists, or one is better than the other. There is no such thing. There is no comparison, because ultimately lawyers also have to argue on science And the science that we get can only come from people who are doing the research, who are the marine biologists, scientists in that particular field, forest researchers, forest experts, for a matter concerning. For we can't just go to the court and just speak out of passion. We have to also build up the case. So while building up, evidence collection involves in environment matters a lot of scientific material, scientific papers, and that's where the role of the amazing scientists, climate scientists, and all sorts of scientists in different various different fields of environment, different sectors of environment come in. So it's a huge collaborative work, and in a way you can treat law or a lawyer or an advocate as a mechanism or a means to an end. So you have a beginning from science. If the science says X, that X needs to be implemented. Now, when that X is unable to be implemented because of various decisions that the government is taking, government is being negligent about it, or any private party is being completely negligent and continuing to cause pollution, that means to take X to its logical end can be taken through this profession of law. And I feel that way law is very, very impactful in the society. And like I just told you about the fact that environment law has now not just an issue of human, or not just a core issue of ecological concerns, it's a human rights issue, it's a big constitutional issue. Plus, moving forward, it's going to play a huge role because it's going to be a common concern of humanity. Climate change is something which is happening at a pace which we also, we in the sense, including scientists, are also baffled. What was expected 5 years ago that will happen in 35, 40 years is happening or is going to happen in less than 10 years. So we are at a position where we can't even say that we need to try. We are at a position that we need to now only win. So there is no other way. There is no other. I'm sure a lot of you must have read the latest reports of IPCC, which clearly pointed out that it's because of human intervention that now we are destined to face 2-degree increase in temperature. 2 degrees Celsius is just like how your human body, when you get a fever from 98, when you go to 100, how do you feel? That's exactly what's going to happen to this planet. Increase in 2 degrees Celsius is going to be catastrophic. We just really, unfortunately, have no other option. So I would urge people who are slightly interested in law to consider. You do your private practice. In fact, even I do it. I just give you a small background there. But keep in mind that a public law issue is very core now. It's an issue of existential crisis. It's not just an issue of, though it is an issue of domestic law, but it is not just an issue of domestic law. It's become a huge international law concern now. And at the end of the day, you like it or not, it will always be a political issue. It will be a socio and political issue because politics is something which is a part of society. And if you want to hold the government uh, to its obligations, you need to make sure that you speak up. And I'm not saying from just a lawyer's background, but a common citizen, any person, any citizen of the country needs to speak up, write to them. If you have access to email, that's a huge privilege in itself. You write to them and tell them that your policies are absolutely bonkers. And I have many instances of what's happening in the country in terms of dilution of environmental law, but that not being the subject presently, I'll stop there. And also, I was also asked to give you a brief background on what my memorable experiences could have been. Well, not very happy because I'm in a particular field of law, or rather I'm in a particular profession where it's more about litigation. We are always having a stand which is sometimes differing, and most of the times in 90% of the matters it's mostly against the government because you have to have the constitutional duties that everyone has and constitutional obligations that the government has to be fulfilled. So one of the memorable experiences, unfortunately, has been I'm now directing this more in the nature of a criticism. And that memorable experience was that in the coastal road matter that we had filed before the Bombay High Court, we were challenging the road because it literally reclaims 110 hectares of coast. In today's time of climate change, where Mumbai is going to face extreme sea level rise in the next 15 years, I'm seeing people are even projecting it to be lesser. We are going ahead and reclaiming further lands, and not just about reclamation that's going to hamper and cause more flooding in the city, but it completely has now taken over the fishing habitats. So fishermen's livelihood, then we are talking about at least 15 to 20 fishing settlements, and which easily comes to around 35 to 40,000 people. Their livelihood is gone, absolutely gone. In terms of collecting crustacean species like crabs, lobsters that are generally found on the intertidal area. Deep sea fishing is still happening, but it requires, there's an entire different aspect altogether. We won't go too much in depth, but intertidal areas have totally been taken away, starting from Nariman Point until Worli. So your 10-kilometer stretch of entire coast is gone of the city. Now that matter in Bombay High Court, we had won. The Bombay High Court, the bench of Chief Justice here, and the then Chief Justice directed that since there is no environment clearance given to the project, basically no environment impact assessment has been carried out, this project cannot go further. It absolutely rejected the stand of the municipal corporation and passed the final judgment. It's a good 178-page judgment in favor of environmental organizations. And this was a huge, huge judgment. And obviously, it's supposed to be a 14,000 crore project. The whole financial data steps in to try and exert pressure. But when we talk about ecological value that's involved in such a project, is something that thankfully the Bombay High Court had overcome and really passed a beautiful judgment. Unfortunately, the memorable experience is that it went in appeal in Supreme Court, though it is pending for final hearing. I will not adjudicate on the merits since it's pending, but I can at least say that the interim order has been passed by the Supreme Court, staying the judgment of the Bombay High Court, basically telling the Bombay High Court judge, telling the government to continue to work until matter is being heard, and when the final hearing happens, then we will see what to decide in the project. But in the meanwhile, it allowed the work to continue. So now the work has almost been more than halfway through. But the point is, the reasoning that was given by Supreme Court was that it will cause irreparable damage to the contractor, and that irreparable damage is in the nature of financial concerns. So this is the level of consciousness that we have in our higher judiciary in Supreme Court. And very unfortunate that this has happened, because it's the environment that is facing irreparable damage. We had rocks which are more than 80 million years old and all of that on that coast. But the point is, this is what has happened.
Zaman,
sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Actually, we're enjoying what you're saying. I think we're getting a lot of good feedback in the chat box.
Sure.
Like a story.
Have I crossed my limit?
Yeah. So what we'll do is, if you don't mind, we can take up a few questions. We have really interesting questions people want you to answer.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, we can just take them up. I'll read it out to you. So we have Sanika, who's from standard 11, and she's taken arts and she's taken geography, as you mentioned. You had also you loved the subject. You didn't take it, but you liked it. So she's asking if her subject will help her become a eco lawyer. So what would you want to tell her? She's Sanika.
Yeah, Sanika, of course. Even if you're doing arts, it doesn't really matter, because ultimately, even if you take up environmental stream and environmental law study moving further, you will still have to apply a critical thought. And I feel art really helps develop that creative critical thought. And that thought process, what you're doing today, will definitely help you even moving forward when you do or choose to do law and implement environment law or any sort of public law remedy that you will take. So critical thought is the core of practicing law, in my opinion. And it will definitely be very helpful to you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Zaman. We have one more interesting question, very relevant to the COVID times. We have Gurpreet asking, what eco advocates are doing to keep away PPE kits and other COVID protected kits from nature? So if you could answer this.
Keeping PPE kits away,
yeah, from nature, meaning I feel like she wants to know about
plastic.
Plastic. Yeah, she wants to know about plastic. What role do eco advocates play in it?
Yeah, now see, this falls into the lack of institutional machinery that we have when it comes to treating our biomedical waste. Now, biomedical waste rules are in existence in this country since more than 15 years. And in a city like Mumbai, you just have one biomedical plant. And this is the problem which we have faced. Obviously, COVID is a huge problem. It has come suddenly, but there has to be more temporary mechanisms of ensuring that they are ventilated and well treated. because it can't go to the dumping grounds, it can't go to such treatment plants, it has to be worked out in a different way. So institutional failure is right there in front of us.
Awesome. So just one last question to you, Zaman.
Yeah.
This is from Nirhar. I don't know if I'm correctly pronouncing. I'm sorry, Nirhar. But he's asking about corruption and how big does corruption play a role in the path of making the planet greener. Is basically his question is surrounding corruption and how huge is it a problem to cope up with climate change, given that there is corruption amongst the policymakers. He just wants to know a little more about it. So if you could give him an insight.
It is. It's a very prominent, very good question. This is what is harming the country since years now. Corruption is really at a peak levels. I mean, you can just look up the kind of contractors that have been fined, blacklisted in a city like Mumbai for potholes, for construction. And we are supposed to be some sort of a world-class city, but even at every policy level, I do not know. See, lobbying always, even it's a positive, or rather a thing which every governments do. There's a lobbying that happens in US. It's very prominent. There's an actual lobbying act as well, which helps lobby happen. But if it is happening under the blanket in a different manner and encouraging crony capitalism where only 5 or 6 companies get everything for the country, then that's a problem. That's also corruption in any way.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, great.
it is a problem.
Yes, for sure. And I think I said it was the last question, but there's another very interesting question, very relevant to your field. We'll just take this as the last one. Doron is asking, our courts take several years to pass a judgment. How do you handle the same as environment needs real-time protection? I feel like this is very relevant.
This is very relevant, and thank you for asking that question. I should have said that even earlier. And the beauty of it lies in specialized tribunal that we have, which is called the National Green Tribunal, the NGT. NGT statutorily provides for finishing or completing the cases within a period of 6 months. And I must say that at least between 2014 or 2011 to 2017, NGT has been doing a fascinating job in terms of ensuring that timely environmental matters are heard in a timely manner. Yes, in constitutional courts, it takes time because in constitutional courts, the backdrop as well as the backlog is huge today. So constitutional courts may take some time. Ultimately, the kind of judges who you're appearing before do matter, and you know how sensitive they are. All these, there are very many factors involved practically. But overall, if you look at the scheme of the National Green Tribunal Act, it has to be done within 6 months, and it has been happening also. I must say where the credit lies needs to also be spoken. So NGT has done a tremendous job as well, and things are better than I would say 10 years ago.
Oh, that's
or
interesting.
10 to 12 years ago. In terms of litigation, in terms of judiciary, please, I want to clarify. And things are absolutely the opposite when it comes to central government.
Okay. Makes sense. Great. So, Zaman, I think it was a lovely talk. You gave us a lot of insights into what your career was like and what you did, and all the case studies were amazing to listen to. I think what I picked up was the fact that environment and livelihoods go hand in hand is a very important
Absolutely.
point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for me personally, for somebody who really is passionate about development at the grassroots, I really like the point that as environmental advocates, you have to bridge the gap between the tribal and the rural people and the urban spaces. So just give them access to the
people
resources.
People in cities will get access in any case through internet, whatever.
Exactly.
It's about them. Anyway,
it's a very valid.
That took a lot of time. Really.
No issues. It was a very interesting session, and thanks a lot for joining us. And we'll again get back to you in the panel discussion. Sure. So thank you. Okay, I hope you guys are doing well. Everybody, you can just sip some water or something, and we'll move on to our next speaker for today, which is Miss Harsimran Kaur, who will share her journey with us. Of course, she is a research analyst for sustainable mobility at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, which is CEEW, and MTech in Renewable Energy Engineering and Management. She carries 7 years of experience in research on the issues with the adoption of EVs. There's India's energy transition. She's worked on analysis of solar rooftop PV plants, among a lot of others. So we really welcome you, Harsimran, and over to you.
Thank you, Janvi. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, cool. Can you confirm if the screen is visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yeah, it's perfect now.
Cool. Thank you. So thanks for the introduction, Janvi. Yeah, I'm Harsimran Kaur. I'm a research analyst at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Just a small correction, Janvi, though I don't have 7 years of experience, but I do have 3 years of public policy research experience in the space.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No problem. I feel great after hearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, CW is among Asia's leading policy research institutions. We use data integrated analysis and strategic outreach to explain and change the use, reuse, and misuse of resources. Our work spans across 7 focus areas, and there's a dedicated Center for Energy Finance at CW. And I belong in the Sustainable Mobility team at CW, which falls under Technology, Finance, and Trade, which is an emerging area in the organization. Now, before I directly jump into what is public policy research, how does sustainable mobility come in, and what are different skills or courses or jobs that you could be looking at, I want to give you a brief overview over what is the climate change thing and where is it placed in the larger climate change debate that we keep having. I think Zaman greatly captured the urgency of the climate change and did touch upon the IPCC report that was recently released, right, which did highlight some of the great findings on how it's become more important to act on sustainability now more than ever, right? It highlights, first of all, that in 2020 we have already crossed the 1 degree mark compared to the average global temperature levels in 1850 to 1900. And if you are being careless, the orange line being the line of carelessness, we are doomed. And if we ever want to bend the curve and make Earth a better place for us to live, we'll have to make a serious dent in the curve. And that is possible if we work on sustainability. And the time to act on it is now. We can't delay it any further. So what are the major sources of the carbon emissions in India, right? If you see the pie chart on the right, it shows the 2019 data on what were the sector-wise major CO2 emission contributors in the country. The largest share is by the power sector, followed by industrial sector, and then there's a transport sector at the third place, followed by building sector, agriculture, and the other energy-related sectors. So now, because I'm working in the transport sector, most of my examples and most of my conversation and discussion is going to be on the transport side. I'd like to have a first poll question, Janvi, if you can float it.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Audience, what do you think? Which is the most highest CO2 emitting mode of transport?
I'll just read out the options also for everyone. The first is trucks, the second is air, third is cars, fourth is ships, fifth is 2 and 3 wheelers, and the last one is buses. Please make sure you click on you guys click on the circle in front of the option that you are choosing. Currently in India, which mode of transport emits the highest amount of CO2 is the question. Abrad, you can let us know when we have a good percentage of responses.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's 100% answered now.
Oh, lovely.
So what's the result? Okay, so people think the highest is cars, followed by trucks, and 2 and 3 wheelers are the same level. Then there's air transport, then ships, and then buses. Okay. Fairly distributed response. I'll just give you the results. This is the ratio. This is the share as per the latest data by International Transport Forum. Cars occupy the largest. By the way, the units are million tons of CO2 emissions. I'm sorry, I did not put it here. But cars are the major share, followed by 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, buses, and then trucks, air, ships, and rail. Yeah. So distribution. Now that you know that, this is the current state of the transport sector emissions, can we have the next poll question as well? If you were to travel from one place to another within your city, which mode of transport would be most eco-friendly? The options are cars, which run on either petrol or diesel, two-wheelers running on petrol or diesel, buses, metro or local train, electric car, or an electric bike, which is the least carbon footprint mode of transport.
We'll wait for another few seconds.
Yeah. Great to have all of them, all of y'all responding. We know everybody is here listening to us. It's awesome.
We are still getting responses. Wow.
Okay. People are really confused with me. So it's great.
It's a very relevant question again with what you have asked.
All right, here you go.
Okay, so the highest, the most popular option was metro, local train is the least, followed by electric bike. Then there's electric car, bus is the least, two-wheeler, petrol, diesel. Okay, one person still voted that petrol and diesel car are eco-friendly. That's surprising. I'll just show you the results. Yeah, so this is the result. The least is obviously walking, but obviously that was not in your alternative options. If you see car and diesel, right, at the bottom end of the bar chart, they are the highest carbon footprint mode of transport. They emit the most amount of emissions. This takes into account not only the operation bit of it, right? It also takes into account the manufacturing part of it. Manufacturing of the cars that are manufactured for diesel and the gasoline engines. Then if you'll notice that even a hybrid car is slightly less carbon intensive, followed by a plug-in hybrid where you have a diesel engine also, and you can charge your car with a plug. That's the plug-in hybrid. So it's still a bit lower. And then you see there's an electric car. Electric car is still at 99, and you still have a lot of options under it, right? Then now if you compare electric car with a bus which runs on diesel or a CNG, it's still quite less carbon intensive. But if it's an electric bus, it's even lesser, right? And if you want to travel a longer distance, you can use a your local train or a metro train. And if your metro train also has an underground network, then it's still a bit better compared to your electric cars. So all this noise about electric cars and electric vehicles and so on is bullshit. We should actually be looking at different modes of transport and different alternative fuels in these different alternative modes of transport, and not really electric cars, right? Sorry, I'm not able to see my. Okay, so what is policy research what is policy research and what are the think tanks? So there's this definition by Professor James McGann at the UPenn, and I think that his definition that he provides as what the think tanks are is pretty good and captures all the work that I do and all of my colleagues do at CW. It acts as a bridge between the academic and the policy making communities. So you have an academic research society that carries out rigorous research, different models and so on they deploy, and then they say, this is what the impact of this particular policy will look like. This is what the technology we must be looking at, and this is not a good technology to be looking at because it's still much more carbon intensive. So they do that kind of very high class academic research. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the policy makers, which do not have so much of the rigor research capacity, but they are making most of the important policy decisions for the country. And these are your government departments, these are your Niti Aayog, the government policy think tanks, or these are also your ministries and so on, right? So think tank is something between both of them. It acts as a bridge between both of them. And it serves in the public interest. So we work for the public. We serve as an independent voice. I think this is very important. We do not advocate, we do not lobby for any lobby group or anything, but we do our independent research. If we find that if a research says electric cars are good, then we say they are good. If we find that they're not good, then that's what we go for, even if that means going against the current government policies and the current government. We believe in our objective research and in our independent voice. And we translate the applied and the basic research that most of these academic institutions carry out into simpler language that these policy makers and the public are able to understand, right? So that's where the bridge comes into the picture. So if I had to summarize most of the work that policy research institutions do into 2 points, I think this is what we do. We just analyze the impact of the public policies that are already out there. So for an example would be, if there's a subsidy on the LPG, then we try to analyze whether it's really impacting, whether objective that for which the subsidy has been introduced is actually being met, whether people are actually being able to afford LPG for their cooking practices at their homes. And the second is, if it's not, then what are the alternative policy options? If a subsidy is not working, then what else should we be looking at? And it's not about just the policy tools, but also about the different technologies. So if an electric car is not good, then what are the other options? And if there are other options, then what is the right amount of option? There can't be just one option for the whole public transport. You can't have, all cars should be electric, and not all cars, but all modes of transport should be electric. Maybe maybe the natural gas makes more sense for the long duty trucks. Maybe electric cars make more sense. Maybe buses if you have battery fitted vehicles, or if you have an overhead line for your electric buses, maybe that makes sense. So we evaluate all these different strategies and all these different technology solutions and try to identify what are the alternative policy options if the current ones are not working. And that starts with identifying what the policy problem is, which is covered in the first aspect. So now that you, okay, so I'm sorry about the animation. So where are the think tanks placed in this broad green economy, right? You have the policymakers. These include your ministries, your government departments, and so on. And then you have your industry, financiers, academia, research centers, and people, right? So these collectively, right, we are placed somewhere between them. Now, the objective of this diagram is not to show that we directly work under the government and we are above the industry, above the financiers, and above the academia, research centers, and people, but we work with them. We would be somewhere in the fine divide that's there between the policymakers and these people. We, like I said, we evaluate different policy strategies, right? So that's something that we do for the government. When we evaluate what are the different technologies, we consult with the people from the industry, right, to understand what are the what other alternate options make sense scientifically. What are the different financing arrangements that will be needed? What is the amount of the capital investment that will be needed to put up a manufacturing facility for it? That's where we interact with financiers. Then we interact with academia to see, understand what is the impact of a particular subsidy or a particular GST incentive that we bring about on the sales of electric vehicles and so on. How would that impact 10 years down the line on the India's economy? That is somewhere where academia comes in. Then there are these research centers that carry out R&D on what are the different, what are the different materials that could be used to manufacture batteries in India, because India does not have so much of lithium. What are the alternative materials that are available indigenously in India that could be used to manufacture batteries? That is where research centers come in. And of course, people. How can we motivate people to shift to alternative mode options? How can I motivate my mom to shift from a scooter to a bus? That's where the people come in. So this is where the think tank is placed. Now that you have a broad overview of what a policy research and looks like, and also where it is placed, where the transport sector comes in the policy research area, can I have answers from you on what does policy research in the transport sector look like? I think the audience can use the chat option and I'll be able to see.
Yeah. You can use not the Q&A option, the chat box. You can use this to answer the question that Harsimran has asked now. What does policy research in transport sector look like? We'll just wait for a few seconds.
So what do you think? What do you perceive as me sitting and researching about when I say I'm a public policy researcher in the transport sector? It should be clear and transparent, no corruption. Well, that's a part of it. Data collection on the emission of different vehicles, that's yes. Introducing large public transport systems, yes, you're correct. Policy related to carbon emissions, and yes. Green vehicles, yes. Alternative modes of transportation, yes. Impacts of current transport policies, yes. Yeah, I think you guys already have a fair idea, so I don't need to spend too much time on the presentation. Studying mobility for the mass, it's correct. That's actually correct. Yeah, so the public policy research in the transport sector looks something like this. You start with an eternal question on how do we decarbonize the transport sector? That's the very first question we start with, right? And then you have these two different strategies under it. One is you can choose for an alternative mode of transport. The other option is you can opt for alternate fuels, right? So it's not like it's one or the other. These are the two different strategies which have to go hand in hand. So if I go for the first strategy, these are the different modes of transport one can opt for. And also for the purpose of this presentation, I'm only focusing on the urban transport. There's also freight transport and so on, and long distance transport. That's a wider transport sector issue, but urban transport, you have these options. And in this, we try to evaluate what's the best strategy, which one is the least cost effective, which one has the potential to create more impact, and what if all of them have an equally important role to play, then what should be the ideal mix of all of these different technologies, right? It's not like a person will be cycling 10 kilometers to work every day. You still need a bus, you still need a suburban rail for it. And if that's the case, then what should be the strategy into doing this, into answering this question, how to shift people to these modes of transport, right? So there are two ways to go about it. One is to directly look at the people and understand what is the problems they face from their point of view and try to address them. The second is to look from the supply side, or more from the top infrastructure or from the government point of view, and say how can they facilitate, or how can the industry, or how can the different Ola cabs or the different mobility service providers facilitate this shift from their private vehicles to these shared modes of transport, or non-motorized modes of transport for that matter. One is the awareness nudge, where you go about doing awareness campaigns, or you design experiments where you nudge people into shifting from a private vehicle to a public transport. And an example of a nudge would be, there's a study that I came across where in an organization, they decided to give more amount of holidays to people who were using incentivize people through providing more amount of holidays for people who were using public mode of transport or shared mode of transport, right? So even carpooling was being considered, and people who were using their private vehicles or their private two-wheelers to come into the office were not given any benefit. So that's a nudge. It's like a carrot and stick approach that you can deploy to shift people, right? The other one is from the supply point of view. So how can these modes of transport be made more accessible to the people? How can these modes of transport be made more affordable, comfortable, safe? So when I talk about, walking and cycling, right? In my city where I live in Delhi, right? I can't see a single cycling lane. I can't see a single footpath. Now, if you want people to actually move to these non-motorized modes of transport, right? So what are the strategies? I'll have to provide this infrastructure. How can I provide it? How can I work with the urban local bodies, or how can I work with the state governments and so on to facilitate the infrastructure that's needed for them, right? And what are the different tools or technologies that I can develop that will be helpful for these mobility service providers, which are these Yulu, Vogo, right? These bike sharing options and so on. How can I help them, right? With regards to bus and metro rail, how can I make them more comfortable? How can I make them more accessible, affordable, right? How can I have a bus running through the most densely populated areas of the city? When I was trying to map out what is the distribution of the bus stops in Delhi and where are the densely located populations in Delhi, right? I found that there are about 40% of the low income groups that do not have any bus stops in their accessible distance. For 400 meters, they did not have any bus stops. And these are the population that are more likely to depend on public transport, right? They are not going to purchase their own car. They're not going to purchase their own two-wheeler. So understanding how to make these bus transport systems more accessible and also making them more affordable, right? Making them more comfortable. So also increasing the frequency of these buses so that you don't have to wait a lot of time at these bus stops to get to the place that you want to get to, right? So these are some of the detailed questions that we sort of try to answer through our research. The next is alternate fuels. So electricity, hydrogen, and the biofuels, a larger group of biofuels, which is ethanol, methanol, biodiesel, blends, and so on. Everything is included in this biofuels category. So these are the three possible alternate fuel options. There could be more. I'm restricting it only to these three.
Yeah, I think Harsimran, you answered one of the questions by Vaidullah also while you were talking. I just want to point that out, that his question was electric vehicles face hurdles of limited driving range and lack of charging infrastructure. So I think you covered that question. I just wanted to point that out from what you spoke.
Sure. Yeah, actually, the driving distance, right, for electric vehicles. So we carried out a pan-India survey in 2019, and we covered 1960 Indian cities. We had respondents of about 3,700 respondents we covered. And when we asked them, what is your driving range, which is the mode of transport you use? And we also asked them, do you like electric vehicles? Do you know about them? And are you going to purchase it? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of electric vehicles? So we found that 70% of the people travel only about 10 kilometers per day. But of the people who use cars, their round trip distance per day is only 20 kilometers. And they also rated that there's no adequate charging infrastructure, but you don't need it. You're traveling only 20 kilometers per day. So I think that's more of this thing. A comfortable sort of issue. You're not more comfortable, what if this happens, what if that, but that's not happening. You're not doing so many kilometers per day. So that was one of the issues that we found, right? So this is where I think the awareness campaigns or educating people more on the way technology works, the way electric vehicles work, and educating them how beneficial it is for them to shift from their petrol car to a diesel car is where that comes in.
Right. Harsimran, I just wanted to again come in here. A lot of people are asking questions about the skills that are needed. So we have people asking that they belong to an engineering background. So how can they get into research? Somebody has done a course in data analytics. So they just want to know what are the skills required and how do you get into the research field? If you could just answer. Yeah.
Sure. I have that slide dedicated to that. towards the, I think, 2 or 3 slides after. I'll be covering that. But yes, I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, so when I talk about alternate fuels, just continuing with the presentation, when I talk about alternate fuels, we think about what is the best strategy, how to shift people from the petrol and diesel vehicles to using electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, and so on. Again, awareness and nudges from the people's point of view. Then you have from the supply point of view, manufacturers and so on, and the government and so on, looking at how to make them affordable, how to make them more accessible, right? And this is where the current electric vehicle subsidies that are already in place by different state governments and also the central government. They have provided some subsidies on electric two-wheelers, buses, three-wheelers, and so on, so that people are able to purchase this new technology and use it. And then from the auto industry point of view, right? The auto industry today contributes 7% to the India's GDP. That's huge compared to any other industry that I know. And how to directly shifting them from combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles is going to create a lot of disruption. So how to create have a good value chain already in place, how to create a good electric vehicle ecosystem, how to have the workforce for it, right? The kind of the skills that you need to manufacture a diesel car or a petrol car is very different from the kind of skills you need to manufacture an electric car, because there's more of electronics in electric cars. There are more of mechanical parts and moving parts in the other combustion engine vehicles. So that's the kind of issues that are needed to be looked into. So I'll just give you an example of a study that we released last year. We tried to, the question for us was whether 30%, what is the impact of 30% electric vehicle sales in 2030? And the reason why we were looking at this research question is because there's a lot of talk about, India's target should be 30%. India has already signed an agreement with the Clean Energy Ministerial, where they had said that by 2030, we'll have 30% of the total vehicle sales that will be electric. So we try to identify what are the gains and what are the trade-offs as well of such a move. We find that, of course, the GHG emissions are reduced. There's a lot of air pollution that's avoided. So a lot of crude oil import bill also that's saved. So you save about 1.1 lakh crore on the crude oil import bill, right? That's a lot of savings. Then through manufacturing of electric vehicles, you're able to generate value. You're able to generate a market size of 2.1 lakh crores. You're able to generate about 1.2 lakh jobs in the manufacturing space only. And also, when we look at from the consumer's point of view, there will be 9% to 20% savings, ranging from a person who owns a two-wheeler to a person who owns a car or a bus. It's the range of the savings that a person will have. So this means that, even if a person is saving, if I am saving 100 rupees on EV, I'll be using that 100 rupees somewhere else. So that's where the circular economy, the circular effect of this particular benefit comes into play.
Makes sense. Harsimran, we are slightly running short on time. So if you could cover the skills bit, since like I mentioned, a lot of people are asking us.
Sure.
So yeah, we could directly move to that.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we also found some trade-offs, just like skipping over it. The point is that there are a lot of trade-offs as well of every different technology, but there are definitely ways to tackle them, and we've also studied them. Not in detail, but we identified that these are some of the options. Yeah, and why I do what I do is because the reason why why I'm so interested in policy research is because the kind of there's a lot of patience that's required. There's a years of research that's required. For example, for the Kigali Amendment, which was an amendment to the Montreal Protocol. So there was this chlorofluorocarbon phase down that was started in Montreal Protocol, where they said that it depletes the ozone layer, so we need to work on phasing it out. And then you had the amendment saying that the HFC are not so good actually. You should phase out them also. But there was a years of body of research that was required to make this push. And today, this month, India actually ratified it. And it's good to see that these policies are finally coming into place. So also National Hydrogen Energy Mission that I contributed to a little bit of it, and that was finally announced. So it really feels great to have finally made an impact. And also the other reason why it's interesting is because this is a scale of impact. If you work on a particular pilot, if the pilot works out, then there's a avenue for you to take back the findings to the Ministry of different ministries. In this case, we took back the findings to the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and informed them on the upcoming policy on distributed renewable energy for livelihoods. So what I'm trying to say is that the impact is huge if it works. It's a lot of patience that's required though. Yeah, so this is the slide that I'll cover a little bit in detail. So when I talk about the policy research space in the green economy, these are the different kinds of spaces that are available. So you either have an option of working on renewables, energy efficiency, power, cooking fuels. Mobility is where I come in. Climate risk, so things like cyclones, floods, and so on. Why that's happening? Climate geoengineering. So this is about carbon capture technologies. How can we capture carbon from the space and so on? And also working on how to mitigate water pollution, air pollution, and how to make agriculture more sustainable. Are the different sort of areas that are there, and the kind of work that or the kind of different kind of the areas that are there in the policy research are one is the core research, where you follow an academic sort of this thing research background, right? You have qualitative and quantitative. It's not just that you deal with numbers, there are qualitative aspects as well. You carry out research interviews with people, and you try to qualitatively assess whether the policy that the government has introduced are actually reaching people or not, or are they really happy with it or not. So that's where the qualitative part comes into play. The second is a data analysis. So I think if you have skills in Python, R, Stata, Excel, Microsoft Excel, if you have an advanced skill on it, that's really going to come handy in the policy research space. So it's this is one other area. There's energy modeling. It's a very niche group, I would say, where people try to model, if today India plans to go 100% electric vehicles, then what will be the impact 100 years down the line, 50 years down the line, 30 years down the line? How will the whole scenario of India look like? Taking into account not just the transport sector, but other sectors as well. So there's a lot of economics also involved, and also there's a lot of understanding that you will develop while you work on energy modeling as to how the different industries function, how the macroeconomic part of the energy modeling works. Then there's the engagement with the decision maker. So I think this is very important because most of the, like I mentioned in my previous slide, we are a bridge between the academic and the policy makers, right? So you need to constantly engage with the decision makers to take your research to them. So and oftentimes you, as a researcher, you're often more involved in your desk research or your ground research and so on, but there's a specific skill that's needed in engaging with them, and that's where the engagement with decision maker comes in. And also there's communication. So we have a really cool outreach team that develops all these cool videos, these cool cartoons, and we build all these reports and so on, right? And constantly tweet it out through different social media channels and so on to shout at every people, this is what our research is saying, this is what you should be working on, listen to us, this is what you found. So that's where the communication bit comes into place. Now it's a multidisciplinary place, and why I say is that like Janvi mentioned in the beginning, I have an electrical engineering background, and then I have done some renewable energy engineering masters, and then I came here. I have these other people who have done urban planning and are working in the mobility space. We have the social sciences people who have done social sciences and also economics that are working along with me in my same team, right? The people from law background as well, who are working on, some of the discom tariffs, what are the different tariffs, what are the different things that are there. I'm also all I'm trying to say is this multidisciplinary. You don't need to have, you don't need to go through a dedicated public policy research course or a public policy course that's already there in some of the universities to enter the space. It could be anything. It could be doing anything. The skills are transferable, and it's very easy to enter into this space.
Right. I think this is a very, very important point. A lot of people asked us questions about this in the previous feedback forms as well. So you answered it really aptly. And I'm very glad that you've put the names of the institutions that people can check out. So I think our audience can just take like a screenshot, and also we'll be sharing this in the resource pack as well with the audience. Harsimran, I just wanted to ask, is it okay if we share the remaining slides, if there are any, with the audience in the resource pack?
Because that's all.
We're running slightly short on time, so in the interest of time thanks a lot. Sorry to cut you, but thanks a lot, Harsimran. It was a great address that you gave all of us, and you touched upon electric vehicles. Like I said, all the myths got answered about research. A lot of people think it's just like desk related job, so the kind of impact of making, you don't know how impactful it is. So that kind of an entire bubble got bursted, and we got to learn a lot from you. So thanks a lot again for joining us today, and we'll move on to the next speaker now.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much, Harsimran. Just wanted to add also, Janvi, that there's been quite a lot of questions on the Q&A and chat for Harsimran. So Harsimran, whenever possible, if you could type in some answers, that would be really helpful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, just since we are running a little short on time, I would like everyone to just stay around, and because we have a lot of interesting things coming up. Apart from the panelist address as well, we'll be sharing internship opportunities with you guys, the feedback form, and we have a very interactive audience, so we're very glad to have you all. So thanks for sticking around again. Now welcoming our next speaker, which is Mr. Ramesh Sharma. Ramesh ji is a grassroots environment activist and the General Secretary for Ekta Parishad, which is a mass-based people's movement for land rights with an active membership of thousands of landless poor people. Ramesh ji has played an instrumental role in strengthening and expanding Ekta Parishad as one of the most significant people's struggle, and has worked on issues such as the land rights, farmers' rights, rights of the tribal, nomad, and Dalit communities, women, and so many more issues. So we would like to welcome you, Ramesh ji, and over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to the organizers, and thanks to the audience also to give me this opportunity to speak on behalf of Ekta Parishad to all of you. And it's really a pleasure to listen to the previous speakers. It was really insightful. So friends, I'm not going to present any kind of a PowerPoint presentation. It's my just simple experiences I'm sharing with all of you. Just a little bit about my work, because Kavya has especially requested me to talk about my own journey. So my own journey started with my schooling. I did my schooling in village schools in Chhattisgarh. I did my graduation. I completed my B.Tech, and then after I have done my post-graduation in natural resource economics. And then later I done half of my doctoral degree from IIT Delhi on indigenous technological knowledge. And that was, sometime I realized that since beginning, I was more inspired to go for the activism rather than for the academics. So I decided to go back to the forest of Bastar, the South Bastar in Chhattisgarh, and I started to live with a community in the place called Abujmar, which is a very special area. Probably you know it's an unsurveyed land called no man's land. I stayed there for almost like 5 years, and then I joined the organization Ekta Parishad. So Ekta is a unity, and Parishad is a forum. So it's not just a one registered organization, but it's a kind of an umbrella which brings more than 2,000 grassroots organizations working together for protecting the rights of the indigenous people, the fisher folks, nomads, and the women, especially on the ground. Ekta Parishad is also known and obsessed with the way of doing the foot marches. And we are known for doing a lot of foot marches on the ground. I remember my first foot march was way back in the year 99, when we have walked more than 3,500 kilometers in 194 days. And then after there was a agreement with the government of Madhya Pradesh, and certain legislation came to protect the rights of the indigenous communities and the Dalit communities in Madhya Pradesh. But the most significant was of 2007, the name of campaign called Janadesh, when 25,000 people, we walked from the place called Gwalior to Delhi. Imagine 25,000 people walking in the national highway for a month. And when we reached Delhi, we finally successfully, we have advocated and negotiated for a new legislation called Forest Rights Act. There was many other parallel movements, but our walk with 25,000 people was kind of a final push for the government to come into the negotiation table and do negotiation. And why this particular legislation is important, I have to tell you here, because this is the one legislation which actually recognizes the rights of the indigenous community and the forest dweller over their land, forest resources, and the natural resources. And we do strongly believe that they are the custodians of the nature. They are the custodians of the natural resources, which actually they own and they conserve, they protect since ages. But I was also part of various other committees, especially for drafting a national anti-farms policy in 2013, drafting a Homestead Guarantee Act in 2012 and 2013. In 2014, I was a part of the drafting committee of voluntary guideline on land tenure. This is a very, very special document actually released by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, UN, and which actually talked about protecting the land and livelihood rights, the environmental rights of the marginalized communities, the fisher folks, nomads, indigenous people, hill tribes, etc. So, and then finally, in 2021, I was actually appointed as a member of the Global Hub for the Indigenous People. This is, again, it's a kind of international institution created by a lot of research and the UN agencies. And I'm also part of the Champions Network, which actually now we are involved in the UN Convention for the Food Systems. And with the lens of the food systems, we are talking on so many different issues, which actually my previous speakers have discussed here. So this is a little journey about my own organization. But let me briefly talk about the communities whom we are working with. As I said, that they are the tribals, they are the nomads, they are the fisher folks, they are the pastoral community who are living with the nature since ages. Their tradition and belief system based on the deep respect of nature, and they have a strong sense of place and belongings. Unsurprisingly, indigenous people have been a strong opponent of changes, the changes which is actually imposed from beyond in the name of development. They defend their land rights against the illegal encroachment, against the destructive exploitations from their in the name of mega dam and in the name of the logging because of the mining operations and because of the other forestry related projects. So that actually can make them an ideal custodian for their landscape and their ecosystem. So it's very important to understand that why these people are fighting. As I mentioned, that their livelihood is actually dependent on the natural resources. So whenever they have a threat, whenever they threat to lose their natural resources, they fight and they stand and they speak out against them. So it's all about the ecological footprint of non-indigenous community created over the last few decades. Today, we need to answer whether we are living within our means or we are eating the ecological capital of nearly 100 million people. In India, according to our own estimate, nearly 100 million people are directly dependent on nature for their life and livelihood, because they derive their livelihood from the nature-based occupations. So, but the dramatic changes of land use and uncontrolled grab of natural resources have transformed the biosphere, we know. And if I take the data of the international researchers, which actually say that 70% of the grassland, 50% of the savanna land, 45% of the temperate forest, and 27% of the tropical forest are already disappeared forever. Can you imagine? So, and if you take the reference of very recent report of UNCCD of 2012, it says that the 40% of interstate conflict over 60 years period were associated with the grab of land and natural resources as a result of predatory economic model. So that's how they are the legitimate fighter to challenge the whole development model, which actually displacing the millions of people every year. 80% of the major armed conflict between 2007 and 2014 were occurred in the vulnerable dry ecosystem. So that shows the quantum of conflict which is actually emerging from the ground. So let me conclude by saying the future challenges of development perspective, plans and programs and policies need to be judged by the ecological footprint and the cost of changes the local community paying for. We need to stand up and speak out for the survival of the weakest. Let me continue my conversation, because nowadays there is a lot of discussion and debate around the climate change process. And I mean, recently there is an IPCC report, it's actually released, and the whole a new way of dialogue and discourse have been actually emerged. But if you allow me, I would prefer to use the phrase called climate crisis. For me, the change is a reversible process, but crisis is not a reversible process. Crisis is an irreversible process. And the way we are dealing with those communities, we are dealing with the nature, especially the people like indigenous people who are living, we are actually creating a huge amount of crisis for their life. Today, a certain set of crises injected through irrational changes and has derooted the millions of tribal community in many ways. On 9th of August 2011, the UN Secretary General said, and I quote, the world that how certain climate crises become irreversible and pushing the entire humanity towards a dangerous end. So even the UN Secretary General recognized the whole process of development and how the whole developmental process is actually displacing a large number of people on the ground. According to the UN Working Group on Human Rights report of 2012, which says that nearly 26 million tribal people have been displaced or evicted. Can you imagine? This is the 25% of the total tribal population in India. So 25% of the tribal population is actually displaced or derooted forever. There is no resettlement or rehabilitation actually made, or dignified rehabilitation and resettlement made for them. And for what? For deforestation, dam project, mining project, urbanization, and various other infrastructural projects. In the recent past, the changes in the weather cycle deeply and negatively impacted the agriculture cycle, especially for the tribal and other nature-dependent community. If you can see the variety, the verticals of the vulnerability with respect to the life and livelihood of these community, we may end by saying this is the total disregard of ecological or the nature's root. Interestingly, the tribal community in India own the richest heritage of indigenous knowledge system conserved over centuries and still remain relevant for saving their life and livelihood. Being a student of indigenous technological knowledge systems, we have found that the tribal community now rediscovering the traditional knowledge system, which are deeply rooted in their agriculture system. When growing rice has become a more and more challenging between the erratic rainfall and unpredictable rainfall pattern, the Muria Madhyas of South Bastar in Chhattisgarh restarted growing ancient variety of rice called Satka. Usually, one of the shortest duration of rice could be harvested in 80 to 90 days. So this is the shortest duration, which is actually invented by the IRI, International Rice Research Institute, Manila. But the Satka variety of rice, the wild rice, which is actually grown from Muria and Madhya in South Bastar, which is actually ready to harvest within 60 to 65 days. So this is a miracle, which, and they are actually rediscovering and reintroducing because they want to fight and they want to challenge the whole crisis which actually emerging around them. In the course of shifting cultivation, although shifting cultivation has already been banned in India officially, but the Baga community in the Maikal hills of Madhya Pradesh, they still do practice the shifting cultivation, and they grow more than 20 varieties of food grain, pulses, oilseeds, vegetables, just in one cropping year. So this was all the reason why we decided to fight and protect the rights of the indigenous people, the rights of the nomads, the rights of the forest dwellers, and to come up with a proposal of Forest Rights Act, which was actually recognized and implemented since 2008. And believe me, I'm very happy to say here that after the big effort of 2007 and 2012, when the Forest Rights Act came through the effort of Ekta Parishad and many other people's movement, more than 20 million people, imagine more than 20 million people, they have received their land entitlement. And now they have rights over the individual land as well as they have rights over their common property land and resources. So let me conclude here by saying this is the high time to think, shape, establish, and execute the new system of education. I would prefer to say the green education, which could at least respect and recognize the wisdom of 100 million people who have nature-based life and livelihood.
Yes.
So let me stop here, and if there's any question or immediate response, I'll be happy to take that.
Awesome. I think your address is really, really inspiring. I think it moved me again. I want to come in and say that I'm very passionate about working with rural and tribal people. And what you said made so much sense, because in a way it meant that our daily actions impact those in the rural and tribal areas, the communities that are living so far away from us. So I think that point was brought in really well, Ramesh sir. And I'll just look at the questions once, if there's any missing questions that we would like to ask you.
I just had one question.
Yeah.
Hi, Ramesh, Kavya here. So I think we wanted to really know that what kind of actions of ours actually do impact rural tribal communities, like indirectly, but what is it that we can do to live a more responsible and conscious life, not just towards the environment, but towards the vulnerable people who get impacted by our actions? Could you just briefly talk a little bit about a few things we could do?
Right. So, let me answer your question about directly and indirect way. What are the four most unsustainable things which we are doing today, the world is doing today? There are many, but I'll just take only four because we have a shortage of time. The one is the unsustainable way of farming. The way state, the transgovernmental organization, the international organization promoting the chemical-based or biochemical-based agriculture system, which, believe me, I'll quote the research which is actually done by many international organizations, which says that we have already lost more than 2 billion hectares of land because of the unsustainable farming system. So here we need to understand, we need to adopt the way so that we can protect the nature as well as we fill the stomach of the 7 billion people in the earth. So I think going back towards the natural farming, going back towards the organic agriculture, going back towards the agroecological farming is the only way for future if we really want to protect our people as well as the biodiversity. The second very, very important negative thing which is actually happening, and there is a huge amount of debate, one can easily challenge me, but I would prefer to say the most unecological way of urbanization we are doing today. I have did a lot of research in association with the Cologne University, and we find that over last 70 years of journey, we have lost more than 90,000 villages. So the 90,000 villages are completely wiped out from the map of India because of the urbanization and because of the infrastructural projects. Every minute, we are actually destroying a real fertile soil. If we take the example, there is a very interesting document called Soil Atlas. And if I refer the Soil Atlas, which says that equivalent of the 30 football fields are consumed by cement and concrete every minute. Can you imagine 30 football fields every minute we are destroying? One of the most fertile soil which can actually give the food and good health for everyone. The third, the most unsustainable thing which we are doing is an uncontrolled mining. In India, I was the part of the drafting committee, Mines and Minerals Development Regulation Act of 2010. And then in 2015, we were in the part of the advisory committee. And we know that there is an aggressive effort by the mining company to extract all mineral resources. we have to understand that these are finite resources. So if we are extracting everything, that means we are not really concerned about the intergenerational right or equity. We are concerned only about our life. We are not concerned about the future generation. So that's why I would say that the whole uncontrolled mining need to be checked properly and immediately. And the last thing, which I think very, very important, the fourth factor is the ecological credit crunch in the living planet, that humans are using 30% more resources than the earth can replenish every year, which is leading to deforestation, degraded soil, polluting air and water, the dramatic decline in the flora and fauna, and a constant increase in the ecological depth. So we are overshooting the biosphere capacity. Is there any moral checks to the consumer's voracity? Who are the responsible for alarming planet trashing today? So here we need to decolonize. We need to transform our own personality, our own way of life, our own way of thinking, our own way of consuming, our own way of looking the world, our own way of looking the tomorrow. If we are not ready to do today, probably we are going to invite a big threat. And as I said, if this trend of the consuming, the voracity, the consumer's voracity will continue, probably by 2030 or 2040, we need 2 planets, and it's not possible to search the another Earth here. So let me conclude by saying that, I do believe, being a Gandhian organization, I have a strong faith on the nonviolent resistance, on the nonviolent campaigning, and we do a lot of nonviolent campaigning, and we are known for that. One thing which always, the one quote of Gandhi, which always inspired me, what he said, and I quote, "If you are not indifferent, the world will be different." So here it's a choice of us, whether we want to be indifferent or whether we want to change and whether we want to be different. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ramesh ji. I think you spaced it out this session very well. We got to know so many aspects about your journey and got to learn so much from you. There was just one very pressing question all the participants had. It's about the skills that are required essentially when you are in this kind of field and what kind of challenges you face. This is something you've touched upon, but focusing on the skills, if you could just give us a few set of skills that you feel are a must if you want to get into this field, or if you want to do something in terms of like leading a movement. So if you could just elaborate on that a little bit.
I think my previous speakers, they have also already answered, but let me continue by saying that only 2 things very shortly. The one is openness to learn, and especially to recognize and respect the truth and justice. So here, sometime we keep, whenever we go for the social activism in the field, I did with my own. I was actually educated in the IIT Delhi, and then I started work with the community, Amudia, Madia, and South Bastar. I decided to start to de-learn. So the whole de-learning process, the de-orientation is very, very important, especially if you really want to associate with the community and directly work with the community. So this is a very, very important. And the second thing, which I personally felt it's extremely important, is a deeper patience and the passion for building the understanding. But here I would again repeat what Gandhi said: be the change you want to see in the world. So if we are not ready to change ourselves, if we are not ready to transform ourselves, it's very, very difficult to change the world. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, sorry. I was just saying that we had one question which is a little interesting on, have you faced any threats while you were doing this work? So did you have anything? I think Aruna had, yeah.
Many, but I don't want to waste the time of the next speaker. I'm pretty sure that listening Shweta would be equally interesting. But I had been actually attacked. I was jailed also. There was several cases it's actually lost against me. My legs were broken. So yeah, I had many challenges in my life.
The way you're speaking with such a big, broad smile on your face, Ramesh, it's like, it's interesting to know this angle also exists and how you've gotten through it. So great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ramesh ji. Thanks a lot for your time and for explaining everything so well. We'll now move on to our final speaker. We have with us Ms. Shweta Narayan, who is a global climate and health campaigner at Healthcare Without Harm. Shweta has work experience across the domains of healthcare, energy, and environment, And at Healthcare Without Harm, she's exploring the intersectionality between climate and health and is working with the health sector on climate action as well. So we welcome you, Shweta, and you can go ahead.
Thanks, Janvi, and I'm glad that I'm going last because I by default I'll be speaking the least because all my previous panelists and especially Ramesh Bhai, it's always inspiring to hear you have actually covered everything that I want to say. I mean, and I thought my brief was to talk about how to build an effective campaign and what does it take to be a campaigner. And I think everything from research to connections with the communities, the most marginalized and impoverished are the most secluded and most excluded from the process of decision making. So connection with the communities, good research, and a little bit of knowledge of law, or maybe knowing good lawyers who can assist you are actually the recipe or the what we call as what is a good campaign. I just to sort of give you a background, and again, I want to emphasize on the fact I have a commerce degree in bachelor's from Delhi University. I have a master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences many years ago, and I have specialized in criminology and correctional administration. And what I'm doing right now is primarily looking at environmental crimes and corporate crimes. In terms of background, as I said, and I think Ramesh Bhai also, indicated that we have to be open to understand and open to knowledge. We can have any skills or any specialty that we feel very strongly about. You can be an artist, you can be a researcher, you can be an activist, you can be a lawyer, you can you can cook well, and we have all the elements. Whatever you are good at needs to be highlighted in sort of putting together a good campaign. It doesn't have to be that you have to have a master's degree in certain kind or a PhD degree. If you have it, great, but that should not become a limitation. Whatever we are good at and we are passionate about, and we have and we are sincere in terms of putting the facts together, can make a good campaign and a campaigner. So I think that is very important to go keep in mind while going forward, because sometimes it gets overwhelming. Sometimes we see other people and we feel, oh my God, I need to have that degree to get where somebody else is at. It is not like that. If you feel passionate about something, if you feel strongly about something, and if you have your facts right, you are a campaigner already, and you have everything to be a campaigner. I want to actually share a story. I want to share a story of a campaign and a success story, because I feel, again, a caveat, we don't have many victories, so we savor whatever victories we have. But the reason why I wanted to share this particular story is because just to highlight, again, the same aspects, what our previous panelists have spoken, supporting the most marginalized, good research, good legal standing, and using arts in campaign tool to win, and to win against one of the biggest multinational corporations. I think it's something that we should learn, and we should sort of see how we can incorporate it. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if, sorry, just a second. So let me see if I can share. Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm going to talk about a place called Kodaikanal. This is a hill station in Tamil Nadu. I'm sure some of you would have heard of it, or most of you would have heard of it. But what I'm talking about Kodaikanal is a little in a different light. There was a mercury thermometer plant in this small town, abutting the forest. And this mercury thermometer plant was owned by Hindustan Unilever. One of the biggest names again in the fast-moving consumer goods market. And the plant was set up in 1983. It was a second-hand plant. It was brought imported from US after the mercury regulations, emission regulations were becoming stringent there. And this you will see in a lot of technology. When the technology becomes redundant in the West or becomes too toxic to environment or human health, it normally, in most cases, it gets exported to third world countries. So we received this second-hand plant, and workers were employed in this plant for 18 years, from 1984 till 2001, for 17, 18 years, and a lot of workers, and I mean, just I'm going very, very fast on the facts of the case. In 2001, residents and workers around the plant found a lot of mercury, and mercury is a very toxic chemical. It can kill. Exposure to mercury can kill. Just to be clear about that. So a lot of the community members found a lot of mercury waste dumped in the forest behind the plant. And that raised a lot of alarm. In fact, on the top right photograph, if you can see, this is mercury thermometer waste with mercury, which was dumped in the local kabadi wala. So, this raised an alarm, and the Pollution Control Board issued orders to shut down the factory. Now, in 2001, when people started making these questions and asking about, like, oh my God, we found mercury in the forest, what does mercury do? And people started kind of researching around it. They found mercury is super toxic. Workers did not really know how bad mercury was to their health. But once they were kind of informed that, what are the health effects of mercury, from tremors to memory loss to mental issues, death, kidney failure, death. And some of the classic symptoms are loss of teeth and blue gums. So, if you've been exposed to mercury for a very long time, that's a very classic symptom. So once they started kind of listening and understanding the health effects from the health experts, they went back and started connecting the dots and found out that a lot of their colleagues had those kind of symptoms because they had worked in the factory and they were exposed. Some of them have also died. So between 2001 and 2003, I think 2004, they kind of, explored and found out. And in 2006, February, they finally filed a case in the Madras High Court, which was about rehabilitation and compensation and remediation. And I mean, it was not just the workers, it was their family members and their children also, because when workers would come back from the factory, they would carry mercury on their body, and eventually they would expose their family members. So there were a lot of cases of children being affected because of mercury. There were cases of women having spontaneous abortions, miscarriages because mercury affects the reproductive system also. So all of this put together, a case was filed in the Madras High Court in 2006, and the case went on. And Zaman has talked about it, that the lengthy duration that it takes for courts to, because there's so many aspects, there's so many parties, and then you need a government report, and you need this and you need that. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the details of the case, but we were assisting the workers who were affected and who had filed the case, and in kind of supporting them with research, with information, with connecting them to health experts, scientists, so that their case can be, the evidence for their case can be strengthened. So, as part of that, we also had, we connected with a whole bunch of young artists from the city of Chennai in kind of expanding the public side of the campaign and raising awareness, because we felt that if there was enough public pressure from citizens, consumers, because Unilever products are everywhere, then probably the company would consider the demands, or the courts would see the seriousness of the matter. So and we had been engaging with young people in terms of raising awareness. And one such young person was Sophia Ashraf, who in that time, was a budding rapper and music artist. And she decided to make a song. And that song was, and you can look it up online, it's called Kodaikanal Won't. And that song was basically on the tunes of Nicki Minaj's Anaconda. And that song was launched in 2015 as an awareness tool to talk about what's happening in Kodaikanal, what workers are going through, and why we need to focus on Kodaikanal and the workers. And that song became an instant viral sensation online. And not just in India, around the world. And we had even Hollywood respond to that song. We had Ashton Kutcher, Nicki Minaj herself commented on the song, Mark Ruffalo. Like, that song really caught on. There was a petition with that song that we wanted people to sign on to sort of for Hindustan Unilever to do the right thing. And there was a lot of media that we got in terms of being on the front page of New York Times, London Times, Washington Post. We were everywhere, and the idea was that with this song, what it did was it brought back the focus on the workers, on their experiences, on the history of their struggle. And in UK, there was this online petition group that kind of picked up on this song and this messaging and did a petition, which was basically calling for a consumer boycott. Now, we are, the workers of Kodaikanal are some of the most, socially and economically marginalized people. And they were up against a company whose global advertising budget is $8 billion. So it's the classic David versus Goliath. But with the support of people around the world, there was a lot of pressure that was built on this company. People from all over the world were writing in and saying that, oh, we didn't know that Ben and Jerry's Unilever, but after listening to Kodaikanal and after seeing what happened in Kodaikanal, I don't think I can use your product. So this kind of campaign built up, and people just completely were shocked and started reaching out to the company saying you need to do the right thing. And sure enough, and between 2015 and March 2016, there was so much of public pressure, and the company and the workers eventually entered into a settlement. 591 workers were given compensation and rehabilitation package. And that's just one part of the campaign. The other part of the campaign is the site, the Mercury factory is still contaminated, and there is pressure being built on the company to clean it up to the best international standards. But I'm just giving you, again, keeping in mind that we have very short time, I wanted to kind of give you a case study of what it took. It took us a lot of research, a lot of data and facts to ensure that our credibility is intact. So we are not saying things for the heck of saying it, but we are saying things because they are facts, they are well researched, they're well referenced, and you cannot be disputed. That cannot be disputed. We were providing support to, again, the ex-workers of the factory who were affected, who were sick. A lot of them didn't have much money, and they had limited capacity to take on and fight for their own rights. So we supported them. We provided that support to them. And then there was a fight in the court and outside. So there was enough pressure built on the corporation to respond. So I want to go back to that meme that was shared. And yeah, this is fascinating because different people think that there are different things that we do, but I think that we do a bit of everything. And that meme is really interesting in that sense, because the Kodaikanal story itself will give you a perspective of what we do. And just also to kind of come back to the fact that you will see campaigning and campaign strategies. A lot on social media, we see it almost daily. But there is a lot of romanticization of this profession, and I'm not saying that you should not take pride in what you do, but I am just cautioning everybody that it's a lot of hard work. So let's be also aware of the fact that probably 90% of the work that we do is very hard grunt work, and 10% is absolute fun. All of 100% is fun, but 10% is interaction on social media, doing cool music videos, getting endorsements from Mark Ruffalo. All of it is in the 10% of it. So just be aware of the fact that it's not a quick win. It's not any magic that overnight you start a petition and next day you have your demands met. It doesn't work like that. But if you work hard and you are systematic and dedicated, then you are going to win. Because you are on the right side. I wanted to request Kavya to share a music video. I mean, this is in a different context, and again, this is sort of using art to for communication campaign, for campaign that we had, and this is on air pollution in North Chennai. And the target before we see the video, I just wanted to kind of highlight that the target audience were the young residents of Chennai and the policymakers. So this music video is in Tamil, but it's subtitled and it's catchy tune. So and maybe I can come back to it after we've seen it.
Great, yeah. Let's watch the video. Very excited.
கபடியாடுவோம் பங்கமா கூட்டமா இருப்போம் சிங்கமா கபடியாடுவோம் பங்கமா கூட்டமா இருப்போம் சிங்கமா தொடைய தட்டு நாக்கிங்கு நீ மோதுனா உனக்கு சங்கு ஆனா ஆட முடியல ஏனா எனக்கு சுவாச கோளாறு தானா நாங்க பிறந்து வளர்ந்ததே வீணா இதுக்கு காத்து காரணம் தானா காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு சடுகுடு காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு டேய் காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு சடுகுடு காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு என் பாட்ட முப்பாட்ட ஆடுன ஆட்டத்தை இப்போ என்னால ஆட முடியல என் பாட்ட முப்பாட்ட ஆடுன ஆட்டத்தை இப்போ என்னால ஆட முடியல கனவு லட்சியம் திறம வீரத்தை கபடி ஆட்டத்தில் காட்ட முடியல காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு சடுகுடு காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு சடுகுடு காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு
Kabaddi, heed my pleas before I choke. All uppers and knuckers and na. The apocalypse is na. Now look for the signs, not with your eyes. Out of sight, ain't out of lungs. I said out of sight, ain't out of lungs. A breath outside and we're in trouble. Not just Delhi, check your city. It ain't pretty. Air is equal, but pollution ain't this levels of grey, even in space. But cops and hawkers, building workers, sweepers, roadside sleepers are left wheezing, sneezing, dust and these things. Hashtag no filter.
காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு ஆட முடியல ஓட முடியல பாட முடியல காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு ஆட முடியல பாட முடியல ஓட முடியல காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு ஆட முடியல ஓட முடியல பாட முடியல காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு ஆட முடியல ஓட முடியல பாட முடியல காத்த வரவிடு மூச்ச விட விடு கோட்டை தொட விடு ஆட முடியல ஓட முடியல பாட முடியல ஆட முடியல ஓட முடியல பாட முடியல ஆட முடியல ஓட முடியல மூச்சு கிடைக்கல
Thank you, Kavya, for playing this. And I know that this is a bit longish video, but I just felt again to highlight different forms of campaigning and different forms of
Right.
activism that we can engage in, and also to highlight the fact that, as I said, and I want to reiterate it because I think it's one of the biggest, roadblock that we face is like, do we have the skills? I think all of us have the skills, all of us have the passion, and we just need to excel in what we are doing and what we can bring to the conversation. It's
Right,
not
absolutely.
necessarily that you have to be ABC, but what can you contribute, and how can you contribute?
That's amazing. That's an amazing way to end your session as well. I think we all enjoyed watching the video. Very meaningful, like a lot of people are putting in the chat. I just wanted to point out that for the audience, since we've reached our time, we'll be sharing the feedback link in 1 or 2 minutes now. And there's also an interview skills session for 15 minutes, which is going to be super useful for you all, considering we are also introducing the career jobs fair that I spoke about in the beginning. So please do hold on if you find that session to be helpful. And like I said, the feedback form will be released soon. So please make sure you all fill that as well. And Shweta, lovely session again. I just think one relevant question that we just wanted to ask, and considering we're again falling short of time, I think it'll be a nice way for you to conclude or sort of give an overview of what the other panelists as environmental advocates also go through. We just wanted to know, in terms of your mental health, since you are working in a very tough situation, and also all of us have been through a lot this year, and especially you guys who work as advocates, I'm pretty sure it's very challenging. Ramesh ji also shared such intense challenges he faces. So in that sense, if you could speak for everyone and speak for yourself as to what are the mental health challenges that you face and how do you deal with it so that we are well prepared when we get into the field.
So yeah, I think very pertinent question and very, very important thing to keep in mind, because if we are not taking care of ourselves, we'll not be good. I mean, we'll not be good at taking care of anything that we do or productive for the community. So I think it's important, as much as the work is important and as much as the cause is important, we need to take care of our own self too. See, as I said, one, that victories in this kind of work are very few and far apart. Okay, so don't expect that you're going to win something overnight. I mean, if you do, then amazing, great. But the reality is that it's not that. I mean, it's super challenging. We should try not to become cynical, because we tried once and it didn't work doesn't mean that it will never work. So we have to keep going at it. We can't afford to become cynical. I think the circumstances are such, the challenges that we collectively face are so immense that at this point, we just have to keep going at doing the right thing rather than just sort of giving up. It is depressing, no doubt. It is, when you see the impacts, when you see what's happening with our planet, what's happening with people, the daily oppression, it's depressing. But I think what solace that I derive is that at least I am doing my bit, and that makes me feel content. That makes me feel, that I've done something worth, celebrating. So, and I think at the end of the day, it's not about how much you get paid, but it's how well you sleep in the night. And this does give you that, it reinforces your faith that you are on the right side of this fight, and history will judge you well. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everything that you said just now. I think it really touched us and it meant a lot to everyone. I just want to say thank you to all of you, and also sorry that we couldn't have the panel discussion in the interest of time, but you, all four of you, stuck around and helped us get such great perspectives, and you answered, most importantly, you all answered so many questions so effectively. To all four of you, Zaman ji, Harsimran ji, Ramesh ji, and Shweta ji, thank you so much for joining us today. Any thoughts before we leave, before we get into the whole interview acing skills in session for 15 minutes? I just wanted to ask if any of you have any thoughts before you leave and say bye to
Sorry, Janvi, I'm going to jump in here. I also want to reinforce the fact, just to take care of mental health, I spend a lot of time with my dogs. So if you have pets, do that.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Yes. Very fun. Yes. Any afterthoughts? Any thoughts that anybody wants to share? Zaman, Harsimran, Ramesh ji, anybody?
Yeah, may I just add two bits? Actually, I want to thank Ramesh ji and Shweta as well for that wonderful talk. In fact, it is this work that actually helps us feel and bring that passion and compassion, as well as the scientific data, map, everything together towards the court, and to be able to express that much towards court as well can only happen when we see the side of the story that entailed so much of hard work, efforts onto the ground. And it's just these are the inspiring stories that help us also keep up with the kind of pressure we face in terms of workload in court and the kind of slow process we have. But thanks so much for your wonderful insight. We are really grateful to have heard you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Anyone else wants to say anything? Or,
Yeah, just very quickly, Janvi.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed the whole session and listening all three speakers and a lot of very interesting questions from the audience. And thanks to the organizers as well as the audience and the speakers. So being a social activist, I always feel that our job is to keep sowing the seeds of hope. So sowing the seeds of hope is the only way to look the future, to look the tomorrow.
Absolutely. Very true. Thank you, Ramesh ji. Thanks a lot. That was a very lovely thought. Anything from you, Harsimran ji?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, as a policy researcher or as someone who works in the transport sector, I don't see many women in this space.
Oh, yes.
I'd just like to inspire, women are needed too, and it's not a man job, or it's not like only men understand transport better. We need women too. So I just urge all the women participants to also think about this career. Yeah, that's it.
100% echo what Harsimran has said. Absolutely.
Yes, a lovely thought again. And I just want to say that from what I have understood, that environmental advocacy campaigns aim to change something beyond one's personal lifestyle, from what all four of you have spoken. And that change requires one to be adept at resolving conflict and negotiating and bringing community and various groups, of course, with varying differences and cultures together very amicably. And this is what we have seen our panelists, that is you all, bring to reality. And just wanted to say your journeys have really inspired me, and I'm sure everybody else in the audience felt the same. So once again, wholeheartedly, I want to thank you on behalf of the entire team and all the audience, all the members in the audience as well. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now for the audience, I just wanted to say, please do drink a lot of water again, I'm saying, and stretch a bit. If you're staying, we'll be most happy because like I keep saying, this session is going to be super, super helpful for you in terms of the job fair and all the internship opportunities that we'll be posting. Oh, one important point that I forgot to mention, the internship opportunities that I spoke of in the beginning, since we are running again short of time, we'll be including all the details in the resource pack. So do make sure that after the session and after filling the feedback form, you go through the resource pack in detail, because you will find everything over there. So without further ado, I think let's just move on to the interview skills session by Wioleta. It's time to know what skills we need to achieve such diverse jobs and step into unique professions like the ones we saw. So again, I request Ms. Wioleta, she's the co-founder of Human Circle and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance, and I request her to take over the session. There's a video that we will be showing. She couldn't be with us online right now, but we'll all watch a video, and I hope that will be very, very helpful to all of you all. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm guessing you're here because you want to know more about jobs and sustainability, about the green jobs. And you must have heard a lot of practical stories and wonderful examples from the speakers. What I want to do is to give you practical tips of how to make that happen. And in one of the previous sessions, we were discussing on how to start designing your career and also how to build and make a resume that will get you an interview. Today, I would like to focus precisely on the interview. So how do you prepare for the interview? So first thing is that you need to have your resume ready, your cover letter ready. This is a kind of a message for the interviewer who's going to read it on what kind of job you would like to do, what kind of portfolio you are seeking to build. It's a kind of an indicator of what kind of necessary experience you are looking for. You have done, of course, in the past, but also what you might be looking for in the future. So with that, the next step is to figure out where are you searching for those opportunities. There are different websites, maybe from friends, as you start spreading the message around yourself that, yeah, I'm looking for some opportunities. Some of the places where you could find those opportunities are, like, for instance, there are plenty of them on LinkedIn. You can use the search button, or not.com. One of the places where you can also search for the jobs in sustainability is the website of YFS India Alliance, where we just publish it. We are keep updating it and putting all the different opportunities for people to start working or volunteering or doing an internship in the space of sustainability. One tip that I would like to give you is that whenever you are applying, you have found the kind of job that interests you and you are applying for it, do save the content, the job description of that position on your computer. Don't save the link. Don't rely that later on you might find this link because the company might, take this link off from their website, or you might not be able to find it. But save the content. It will be very useful on the next stages. I remember when I was starting my career, I would send lots of CVs, maybe 100 CVs. On 100 CVs, 5 companies would even reply. Those were realities almost 20 years back. I don't know exactly what data would be right now, but don't get discouraged if you don't get reply on each application that you are doing. It might take time, but I remember spending at least like 1 hour a day or sometimes 2 hours a day just searching through those websites that I have prepared before to check if there are any kind of new opportunities I should be applying for. The next stage is that, let's say you send those 100 applications, someone replied, right? And they are inviting you for the interview. Whether it's through email, through a phone call, you need to get these information. You need to know who is calling you or inviting you for the interview, and who will be doing the interview with you, the conversation. Will it be the same person or not? Try to find out a little bit more about the interviewer, the person with whom you have a conversation with, just to get familiar of who that person is, whether you want to probably report to this person or is it someone from HR. But definitely write down and mark it in your calendar when, where, and also ask the question if there is anything else that you should prepare for that conversation, for that interview. Once you have that done, then do your homework. This is something super important. First, learn more about the organizations you are applying for. Check the website, check the social media. If you have a friend who knows a little bit about this organization, maybe works there, ask questions, because you really want to know what is that, what kind of organization you're applying for. Then learn also about the position, mainly from the job description. That's why you need to go back to the content of that job description and to read exactly what is that the interviewer is going to look for. It's something very, very crucial to know. But also you might ask your some ex-employees, or maybe you have friends who are working there and they know about this position, to ask a little bit extra questions of why this position got open. Is it a new position? Is it someone left that position? But basically to have an awareness of what is that you are really applying for. And then be ready with your CV and a cover letter. It is a very, very useful tool to just use your CV, use your cover letter during the interview, whether it's a interview in person and you have to print it out, or whether it's an interview on a Zoom or on the internet, through the online. It's good to have that CV just next to you because this is exactly the same document the interviewer will be looking at. It will be very useful to answer the questions. One more tip is to practice your interview. You might feel embarrassed, you might feel silly, you might feel very unnatural, maybe judged, but the more you practice, the less you focus on the emotions that you have inside during the interview and more on the real conversation. So what are the questions that the interviewer might ask you? I have distinguished a couple of groups of questions so that you also know why the interviewer is even asking those questions in the first place. So first, as an interviewer, we always want to know what's your commitment and understanding of the position. Therefore, almost guarantee that every person will ask, what do you know about the company? So have you done your homework? Have you checked on the website who we are, what we do? Do you know what we are about? Because this is what you came for to talk about with us. And the other one is that, how do you imagine a role on this position? So again, how do you understand the job description that you read? How did you understand the position that you are applying? Is it exactly what, or somewhat similar to what the organization is offering? Another set of questions is to understand whether you have the necessary competencies for this position. So questions could be, tell me a little bit about yourself. This is not only an icebreaker, just to get you know just a little bit more, but this is a moment for your elevator pitch. So if you know the job description, you can already, in a way, put those part of your experience, your skills into that pitch in that little question. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Another one is tell me your biggest weaknesses and your strengths. That is very tricky. I remember it was one of the most difficult questions to answer. What you don't want to say is something that your weaknesses is definitely something that is required in the job description. So you need to check if the requirement, you are a good team player. You can't say, you know, my weakness is I'm a very bad team player. I actually love working on my own. I'm a very big individualist, because immediately the interviewer will might not see that this is a somewhat mismatch. And when you talk about your strengths, and generally you talk about your good side of yourself, your skills that you have, it's good to use the proofs of how do you know that you have those skills. And this is something we're gonna talk about. Another popular question is, tell me what you consider as your biggest achievement. Tell me about the decision-making toughest decision that you had, and how, what was your decision-making process behind it? Tell me about the time you disagree with someone. Why interviewer is asking all these questions is to check in the real life, how did you actually express the competencies that you have? Do you have them? Do you don't? You got stuck at some point? These are the tools for the interviewer to get to know, to assess you on those competencies that which he or she is looking for. Another set of questions is your motivation. Why do you want this particular job? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why do you want to leave your current job if you job somewhere else? Or out of all the candidates, why should we hire you? All these questions are testing how motivated, how dedicated, how committed you might be in order to perform, to be with this company for longer. Is it something that really matches your expectation as well? Because something that you need to realize is that the interviewer, the person is taking out time to see lots and lots of candidates to find that one particular or couple of particular people with whom they're gonna work with. They're gonna invest the time, they're gonna invest their know-how, their skills to train, to induct these new recruits, and then to work with them. So they want to make sure that they're having the right kind of people in front of them. And then expectations. What could be your expected salary? What do you expect from the company, from the supervisor, from the colleagues? And also, do you have a preference for the location and travel? All these expectations need to be discussed during the interview, so there is no miscommunication after the conversation is over, so that both sides are on the same page. I often get asked about how do you talk about yourself during the interview, because it's a little bit, is it too much if I talk good about myself? Should I be more, like humble? Which side should I go? So my advice on that is that whenever an interviewer is asking you a question, he actually wants to know, do you have that skill? And if you think you do, prove it to me. Tell me, how do you know that you have this skill? So whenever you are talking about yourself, try to use numbers. If you were saying that I was writing blogs, say how many blogs did you write in within a week, within a year, give some numbers to that. Compare it to something that at the beginning I started like this, then I started with 3 blogs, then I was gradually doing more and more to prove that, for instance, you were more committed, more engaged in the work that you are doing. You may use opinions of your supervisors and colleagues that, well, what they were talking about me, what they were telling me is that I'm good at performing this kind of task or this kind of task. Try to make it as if your own individual involvement, something that you have done on your own. Often I hear young people saying that in my team, we were preparing a project, we were doing this, we were doing that. Tell me, what was your individual involvement, your individual input in the work that your group was doing? Try not to use just adjective. Oh, I was hardworking, I was so dedicated, I was such a good team player. Explain, how do you know? Prove it to me. Is it because you think about yourself that way, or is it that someone else is giving you a feedback that that's actually true? Interview is a conversation for the interviewer to check if you are the fit for the position, if you are the perfect fit for the position that they are looking for. And for you is to check if the organization is a good fit for your career path. That's why in the first place, you need to know more or less what your career is going to be like for the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Of course, it might change on the way, but you should, in a way, establish your direction so that you can also check if that company, that organization is even fitting into your to your criteria. You are not at the mercy of the employer. Some people quit just after a day or a week or a month, just because they were good at convincing the employer that they are fit for the role, but they were very bad in convincing themselves. So in a very short period of time, they are quitting the job, and the employer is in a position of starting the whole process again, sending the job description, interviewing a lot of people. To save that whole hassle of disappointment for you and for the employer, the interview is the kind of a place where you need to also ask your questions. You need to also get to know the company very well to know whether you will be able to perform and be committed to what the other side is offering to you. Because there is always an opportunity cost. If you're going to choose this kind of a job role, you're not going to choose another one because you don't have that much time during the day to perform several jobs at the same time. So make sure that sometimes you might say no, sometimes you might not apply for something. But once you grab the opportunity, which is worth, give your 100% to get it and to perform on it. In order to check if the job is good for you, it's good to have to prepare some questions before to the interviewer. You want to ask your questions also because it's a conversation. It's a both way. So questions you might ask are that what does the training or the induction process look like on this position? Can you describe an average day in the office? You want to know a little bit about the culture. Is it just sitting in front of the computer, or is there more things happening around? How will my performance be evaluated? Is it that I will be just like the boss will just give me some task to do, or is there a kind of process to it, some kind of a feedback that I will get at the end of the day? Can you tell me about the other people that are working closely? You don't know what kind of environment is on this job. What is the office structure? What are the possibilities of growth or promotion? When will you? And at the end, of course, you need to have a couple of questions of when will I hear from you about the results? Is there another level of selection? Maybe there is some case study, maybe some personality test. And also you would like to know when the person in this position will start working, to get to know if you are not traveling or you haven't planned something before that. What not to do? This is also something to keep in mind. Definitely, you cannot go for the interview without doing your homework, checking about the company, checking about the job description. This is something that, and practicing preparing the answers for the questions. This is something it's a must just before every single interview. You cannot be late for the interview. You cannot give unclear, very rumble answers to the questions. That's why it's good to always prepare in advance your answers. It's very highly unadvisable to speak negatively about your previous employer, because the chances that you're going to speak bad about this current employer, if you even get higher, it's very high. It's just not something polite to do. And also, if you are having an interview and you do not ask the questions at the end, it's like you lost your opportunity. It gives a signal to the interviewer that you're not very, very serious about this job, because you don't really want to know about the other side of the table. Never lie in the resume. The interviewer will find out, almost guarantee. And don't forget to follow up. Sometimes the process might take a little bit longer. Sometimes the interviewer or the person you had a conversation with might not be available for some time. But if you really want to get that position, you need to follow up, and you need to check what's happening. When will you get the answer? So in order to be the best prepared for the interview, you should ask yourself this question: which sustainable or climate crisis challenge you feel deeply for? What is the solution that you want to create or be a part of? What are the talents and skills you would like to polish and use? So having this crystal clear, it will be much easier to convey this to interviewer as well. At the end of the day, this is your choice on which side of the tree you would like to be, how you would like to live your life. One thing that I would like to encourage you is to use your career to decide the future, not of our planet, because planet do not need us, but our future on this planet. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we've reached the end of our session. Finally, once again, thank you for sticking around, all of y'all. Just wanted to point out, we have another session, the last session in the 4 Saturday series for green jobs. Our last session is on 4th September. And we'll be pasting the link for registration to that session in the chat box now. So if you haven't already registered for next Saturday, please do so. And do share this link with your friends or colleagues or teachers and others who might be interested in attending more sessions. Like I said in the beginning, this session will be more about how to develop your ideas, funding, and everything related to eco-entrepreneurship that you need to know. So please, we're hoping that you join and be as interactive as you were today. Just wanted to thank all of you for being such a lovely audience today. Very interactive, very excited. That really brings that enthusiasm in the panelists as well as the organizers. So thank you for being so nice, and thank you for joining us for so long. The partners, I want to thank UNICEF, UNEP, UNDP, UN India, UVA, Purpose, Human Circle and Youth for Sustainability, who made this event possible today, and many of you who conducted outreach and spread the message of this event far and wide. Very, very thankful to all of y'all. And just wanted to end this with one quote, since we learned a lot about unlearning and de-learning today. It says that before people can begin something new, which is what all of us want to do in sooner or later, they have to end what used to be and unlearn the old way. So I think leaving you with that message, and just wanted to say, be healthy, be safe, and we'll see you all next week on 4th September. Thank you so much. And please go through the resource pack, all of you. We'll be also sharing some details about